kind of. You're an insolvency practitioner. What does that mean? And a lot of people might think. But to me, I sort of think you're insolvent when you owe more than you own, which perhaps the person who's got a higher risk appetite might think that's perfectly leveraged. Others might think that's, you're up shit creek. But what, in a lot of cases, you're sort of thinking, I wouldn't really want to be dealing with an insolvency practitioner. That's the end of the line sort of thing. I know from some of the things I've seen you work on, that's not always the case. What sort of tricks have you got up your sleeve in terms of like the work that you're involved in, and also like when should people maybe as business owners be looking to use you as a resource?
Well, I think the first thing, so we do most of our work is around companies in financial distress. We do a little bit with individuals, but most of it is companies because that's most of what the focus of the legal processes that we understand and are familiar with are based on. I mean, first off, it comes back to that thing I mentioned earlier that, all of us are smarter than one of us. So we're essentially just another resource for business owners to be able to talk to. We've got our own perspective on things, which is possibly similar, but slightly different to their accountants, slightly different to business advisors and, finance brokers, whatever. We all have got our own little area of expertise and we look at things in a slightly different way. First off, I'd say that we are just another resource and always happy to have a chat and, provide any advice that we can and hopefully, or we're not required to do something major, but the things that we can do is generally there's a couple of different ways we can assist. One is obviously that one that everyone's probably familiar with, that if the company is insolvent, is no longer able to trade, has got a lot of creditors, then we can look at the best way forward there to kind of wind things up, realise assets, deal with those creditors. But taking a step back from that, there may be cash flow difficulties that people are having, or particularly at the moment, stuff caused by COVID, there may be hurdles with potential greener pastures down the track, and people just want to make sure they get to those greener pastures. So the government, for example, has introduced a debt hibernation scheme, which they've set up with the forms, and companies can possibly do that themselves or with the helps of their accountant, depending on the scale they've got. We've also got a couple of procedures which may be able to add a bit more value than that, depending on the circumstances. Things like creditor compromises and voluntary administrations. And what these sorts of things do, debt hibernation or compromises or voluntary administrations, they can place a moratorium around your creditors, give the company some breathing space, allow the company to put arrangements in place with its creditors, and without one of them reacting to kind of tip them over. And so then that will just allow companies to get to those greener pastures through these arrangements and, be trading as a great company, 12 months, 24 months and 5 years down the track.
Yeah.
So my background is I was a civil litigator specialising in insolvency. So most other practitioners, their accounting is their backgrounds. So we come at it from a similar angle, but what we're looking is to look at the process, see what fits the company best, and then based on that assessment, we can move forward and, come up with a plan with the creditors, negotiate with them, realise assets, whatever it is. But I think that we haven't seen as much compromises and voluntary administrations in New Zealand in the recent past. But I'm hoping now that companies will recognise that these are valuable tools that can actually be used just to get over the hurdle that companies face at the moment. Because the last thing you want is sort of a company that actually has got good value, is in a cash flow hole, has got some good contracts further down the line, and then, an aggrieved creditor maybe, pushes the button on them. If just for a want of a bit of a time, everyone would be better off. I think that's something that hopefully becomes the main focus for a lot of companies and a lot of insolvency practitioners going forward, is actually how do we maintain the value of some of these companies and work with them a little bit and to get them to a better place rather than, let's just wind them up and move on.
It's like, I think about it from a financial perspective, and it's a lot more about, it's more about timeline than actual numbers, isn't it? It's, you're kind of like managing that spread to back the good horses through.
Exactly. Yep. And a lot of creditors are very prepared to work with companies in that scenario, particularly if the company keeps people informed or has kept them informed. And you've got those good business relationships. And obviously, everyone can also understand a big reason that we're in this situation now is COVID. And so the majority of people generally have that patience, but obviously it just takes one to decide that they're going to try and jump the queue, and that can tip everything over. So it's good if that situation can be avoided. I mean, better for everyone.
Yeah. I'd say there'll be a lot of value, unfortunately, a lot of businesses ahead in terms of what you can provide.
And with a lot of these businesses as well, the real value in them is to the current owner. And there's no good sort of winding it up and, best case scenario, you might have a going concern business you can sell, but given the current climate, that's going to be tricky. You step back from that, maybe there's some customer list, or then you're dealing with stock and assets, which once again, depending on the particular industry, the market might not be great. So whereas if you can find a pathway forward to keep the current owners involved, but providing that were good managers and kind of have got themselves into this situation through external factors, then I think that is, by keeping them involved, retaining that value, then we're going to be better off as a whole, because the flow-on effect to the suppliers and support businesses and financiers and all that sort of thing is going to be a lot better.
Yeah, it's a massive web, isn't it? At the end of the day, one supplier is another person's customer, is another person's supplier, and it's that ripple effect.